Okay, folks, good morning. We'll go ahead and get started. A little bit of a shorter session. Well, hopefully longer than last night. Just after 5:30. We should be able to go to about 7:15. Something like that. So let's see where that gets us. We're just going to pick up where we left off. And put some of this gray paint here. And we're going to continue painting the You know what? I probably need to paint the inside because I'm going to lay this on the side and I'm going to end up scuffing this up. Whereas the inside stuff won't touch anything. What did we use? Some version of camel or something like that. What is this stuff called? Fawn. Okay. All right, we'll take some fawn and a little bit of black. We'll see who decides to show up. We'll see who shows up this morning. That little kid show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And you're doing a show, and then, oh, look, it's the mailman. We got our water here. Good. No, that was kind of handy until it put me to sleep. Well, I'd rather fall asleep painting than get stressed out painting. And we're just going to go over this. Rather lightly. A lot of this stuff you need to just kind of think of it as, don't be a kid. And what do you mean by don't be a kid? I said, well, don't be impatient and think that you're going to be able to get it in one go. It's like, oh, I painted this and it doesn't look very good. I said, well, you can't just put one layer of color or one level of color. 7 layers of color. And the thing about coming back and putting other colors on top of it, the first coat is the one that takes the longest to do and is the least satisfying. Because it's like, and that's the stuff that I've mentioned before, I don't really like doing. I don't like priming a model. Because I feel like it's just something anybody can do. Right? I mean, I can put my own spin, my own flavor, and personality on how I paint things, but the base coat on something, any monkey can do that. I don't see any brickwork, so this is getting this treatment on it. There. Okay. And actually, the one thing I'm surprised of is it's not very unpleasant twisting this around in my hand. What I mean is, normally if you're working something like this, you're like, this thing dries pretty quick. Oh, before I forget, let's put the right chat up. Maybe there's a way to get it to default, but I'm not smart enough to do that. I am not your technology guy. I'm not the guy that can say, somebody suggests, hey, can you like make this or do this to the picture or show two cameras or show another view? I'm not that guy. I'm never going to be that guy. If I spend all the time doing that, then I can't paint. So those nerd burglars that are, showing you how to do shows on YouTube about, how to get more subscribers and, how to do this and how to use Streamlabs. That's your guys for that. They, you know what? They can't paint miniatures. So we're minimalist on the on the stage of getting this stuff, and I find it really frustrating because when you get something working, like I did with the Streamlabs with the computer, we did for a long time. We didn't really have any issues, and then all of a sudden, a week and a half ago, it kicks me off every hour. I just don't have it in me to spend 12, 16, who knows how many hours getting frustrated with something that worked just fine, that I didn't do anything different, and all of a sudden it doesn't work. Like, I'm just going to stay in the office if that's how it's going to be. I'm not that person. When I'm doing a hobby thing and it becomes super frustrating, I'm going to stop doing it. This is anti-frustration, not create more frustration. Now I did, with this one, realize that filming from the phone, I could change the title of it instead of doing it later. And I could change a little, what do you call it? The thumbnail. So it's not the default one, which I didn't even pick. It's like what it gave it to me. That probably won't work either. I'll have to. Now there's some people out there that just change shit just for the sake of changing shit. And too much of that goes on in the workplace. And I use this as my escape from the insanity that brings us all. Maybe these retired people can do that. Leave it to retired people that don't have enough on their plate. Although everybody that I know that's retired seems like they're busier than when they were working. So, I don't know. If that's how it's going to be for me, I'm not going to retire then. I'm not going to retire. I'm not going to not work at my job and then have less time to do my hobby than I do now. That's stupid. That's counterintuitive. And I'm anti-counterintuitive. Welcome, first person here. Happy Saturday. I think it's early enough that everywhere in the world it's still Saturday. Not one of those, if we do later today, it's Sunday and in some of the other continents. Now we're going to take this, let's go over here. This is where we started. It should be a little drier. And we're going to add more of this to here. Yeah, so the difference between the patience level of this and the patience level of, say, working on something electronic. Like, let's say I want to spend, I want to go and watch some videos or maybe read some literature on how to make my Streamlabs show better. The difference with this is this takes a long time, but it's constantly building upon it. You know, it's like if you're learning the alphabet. All right, we did A. Now let's do B, and eventually you're going to get the Z, and it's going to take a while, but none of your time is wasted. It's a progressive journey. You know, if you're doing something electronic, you know, you could like spend 8 hours and not even learn the first letter, and you may find out that 16 or 17 or 18 hours in, you just don't have the skill set to even learn a letter. That's just, I can't deal with it. That's not my personality type. You know, that's not my personality type. So I don't mind things taking a while, but I think, you know, it's the whole, you know, slow and steady wins the race. We're going to get there. And I'm not saying anybody's, you know, come out and said stuff like this, but I would like for, you know, to have better stuff. But I've looked into it and it's like, you know, it's like better programming and stuff like it. It's just not in me. That just creates frustration. You know, because a lot of stuff is, and I'm not computer illiterate by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't do that for a living. So it's an extra hurdle for me to try to figure that stuff out. Than it would be, and I'm not natural at it. You know, we're all natural at some things that require a lot less effort. Well, ran somebody off already. Lily came by and gave me a like and left. Or she. Could be my first female viewer. Actually, that's not true. I had somebody that came in, some nice lady came over, and what, about a month ago or 2 months ago, she came in and she gave me a tip, which I hadn't asked for, which, you know, was always appreciated, and then left. And she's actually another artist. That's kind of cool. Okay, we're not painting military little men. We're painting buildings. Women can get into this, I guess. Well, it's a little sad that it's a destroyed building, but I was a little leery of the. See now the coffee's working. The coffee didn't work last night, and I don't know why. But it's at the end of a day that was tiring. Oh, you know what? I was in the sun a lot. That's probably what it was. I was outside quite a bit yesterday. That's super handy that I can set it that way and it'll stay. But yeah, the caffeine wasn't working last night. You know, it was a night, the girls were traveling. They didn't get in until midnight. I could have had a hell of a painting session. My body didn't want to cooperate. I did finish that Godzilla movie last night. And old Japanese cinema pulled the same bullshit Hollywood did. Somebody you thought had passed away really hadn't passed away. Ah, fooled you. Ha ha ha. makes me go from, man, why'd they kill this character off, to I wish she would stay dead, you know? Of course, they did that with a monster too, although I'm not surprised because, you can't kill off the monster in 1946. You need them for other stuff. So I kind of knew that was going to happen. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to paint the roof other than that. I did not want it to be just straight old black. All right, let's change this color up a little bit. We did sandstone for Country Ass Tan. That's not what it's called. What's this color here? This damn turret's in the way. Get out of here. Nazi turret, get out of here. What do we got here? Something to change it up a little bit. Desert sand. All right, we'll go with some desert sand. Where are my people at? You guys doing honeydew list this early? Is it tea and crumpet time there? This is a lot lighter, which is fine. I mean, if you had a dark building, you want to paint the walls lighter to brighten it up. I don't know, maybe they didn't know about that in France in 1940 or 36 or whenever this baguette factory was built. I didn't name it. That's a good temporary name for it for now. I'm going to go take my car in for service for oil change. So I'm going to do some surfing, see if I can get some ideas for some French factory stuff, because we've got to put a placard up here. And I want to make it removable so that if we decide to go to Mother Russia, mainly Mother Russia, that would be all it is. It would be, I guess you could be Italy as well, but I want to do Italy, but some things will have to wait. That's why I didn't build that little Italian. I have like a little Italian house, or it's actually a little Mexican house that I picked up in a long time ago. It was, even back then, it was sometimes hard to find 20mm stuff. And I'm talking about in the 90s. And I want to say it was by Frontier Miniatures. It's a little Mexican. I was going to say villa. It's world's smallest villa, if that's what it is. Yeah, just something a little brighter there to do that. I think I may use this color for the outside here. We'll see how it goes. And it's a 15mm little building. And it's two parts. It's the whole building, and then there's just a little porch section. And I misplaced the porch section. It's right around the corner here. But it's actually really nice looking, considering what it is. And the porch section's here somewhere. And I'm going to use this for Italy. Maybe it is a little small. Fine. And here's a situation where I would have a little cardboard cutout that's shaped like this, and have it off. It could be something cardboard like this. And then you can. I used to do drafting, so I can do a little drawing here, and the door swings open and stuff like that, and you got little windows and stuff. Just a little hovel, even though this one's not made by Hovels. I believe this is Frontier, and it has really nice detail. So I think this could pass for a little strong point there. But anyways, I have that, and I've got one other building that I did finish a while ago. It's also in 15 millimeter. I've used in several games. It's like a little barn, but that one's for France. So we'll get there. Oh yeah, this is nice. Just finish like this. This is level 3 now of colors. I kind of like doing the destroyed buildings. So you can kind of make them look like shit, and then you're all right. It's like, if you make a new building, next thing you know, you got to put stuff on the walls. You're not going to have some French cafe without any decoration. Or furniture. Was that this one? Desert sand in it. Don't tip on me. Of course, there's nowhere over that way for it to fall. And just like that, like a half hour has passed. Almost. And one thing I was not expecting to do that actually turned out really well is I actually took my black lining and put the black lining in the corners too. I did that on the other building, and that added the extra little oomph that I didn't do on stuff that I built 20 years ago. Is, force some extra shadows in places. Now, I'm going to take bit of white. Be careful with this. It's normally a color, it's not very watery. It is. Let's bring this up a little bit. And then just lightly go over. And I think I need to go a little bit thicker than that. All right, now what happens if I add some of this color to this base color? You know, honestly, if you use a smaller brush, it wouldn't look as irregular. So it might not actually turn out looking better. You know, want to give the appearance that it's dirty, that it's been damaged, it's been sooty, maybe the roof caught fire, all kinds of other debacles that have happened in here. The painting debacle. Guess everybody's busy on Saturday. Sunday always has a bigger turnout than Saturday. Maybe a lot of folks are traveling on Saturdays, or honey-do lists, or maybe working. I'd say sleeping in, but they'd be sleeping in on Sunday too. Then after this, we're going to go to the roofs, the floors, the opposite of the roofs. Ah, the clattering of resin. You know, these buildings are kind of rough looking, but the roughest looking thing of everything on these buildings are the staircases. That's like there's temples built thousands of years ago that have better looking steps. They're like all lopsided. I mean, they're like a death wish. If this is a factory, they didn't have OSHA back then. I don't know that this got the lighter color on it. Aha, you're trying to get away. I didn't put my glasses on so I can see what the F I've been doing. This is actually pretty fun to do. It's like super lighthearted. The girls have been doodling around with this thing, and I give them a hard time about it. It's like this coloring. It's almost like a paint by numbers program. I don't know what it's called. It's like a paint by numbers program that they do on the iPad. So you've got this artwork you bring up. There's all these little lines and all these sections, just like paint by numbers. You know, 52. All the 52s are these colors. But instead of them actually picking the colors from a palette, they just click on things. As soon as they click on things, it colors it in for them. I'm like, that's too fucking mindless. Like, I wouldn't mind doing that, and then I get to pick the colors, right? But somehow they both like it. And I can see my wife being into it because she's not artsy. But my daughter's artsy. She shouldn't be picking her own damn colors, damn it. She's good at that. She's the watercolor gal. And there it is, the one time I've used the word gal. Oh, now it's been two. It's one of those ancient words that I don't use. Okay, let's move. Let's move on. And the inside, now the inside we did the same color. That's good. And it's different than the inside color of this building. Good. That's what we want. With some variety. So we're going to do the same way we did this one, which I believe is using the camel color with black and building them in. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I guess technically this is all one. We got this little bit there and a little bit here on the side walls. Okay, and we're going to do that as well to bring all that together. And then we got some groundwork down here. This looks like it's mainly bricks. Well, we're on the wall mode, so that's what we're going to do. We're not even going to clean the brush. Just roll with it. And one thing is all right because there's like if this is spackle, there's dust and stuff on the spackle that ends up getting on the brick. This simulates that the brick was covered with this stuff eventually. And you've got the blending of the two things. Just like if you've got some brick color on the wall, well, that's just brick dust. So the irregularity actually is okay. Okay. And we're going to have like 5, 6 different colors on there. So that should work just fine. And we'll do the same thing over here. A lot of this stuff, like I was saying, like, oh, these are bricks. You kind of have to figure out what this stuff is as you go along. Like, I'm not sure what that is, if that's stone or something like that. So just go off and paint something else, and you'll eventually come to your senses. Like when I talk about painting miniatures, sometimes you don't need to start, you don't need to wait to start painting the figure until you know exactly what each color is. Just like, I know he's going to have a red hat, so paint the hat red. And okay, I want the pants blue, so paint the pants blue. And then as you're seeing the things appear on this figure, you can kind of sort things out. I mean, at least that method works for me. It may not work for everybody, but that's kind of how I get on with it. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, do what you know you're going to do. You're not going to make his hat pink or yellow, the man in the yellow hat, but maybe that's what you want to do. So paint that first. Paint the thing that there's no question about how you want it, because the other colors are going to have to work with what you know are constants or things you're not willing to negotiate on. Same thing. Do the brick first. I want a red brick building, which I actually saw some pictures, some some buildings that these guys were selling. I think the company's actually out of business. But I was surfing around a couple days ago and I saw some French buildings and they had a different color stonework. It almost looked like almost like this, and that would have worked also. So I don't know. Red brick is red brick. It seems to be everywhere. Maybe we'll do one building that's like this, but then it'd be like it can't be the same town because they would have sourced it from the same brick place. And what would you have a different whatever, you know? Stop being a building nerd. This is a really good size brush, and if there's any kind of brushes I need to get, it's these El Cheapo big ass. I don't need more little brushes. These ones that are being by rubbing them and pushing up against them and dry brushing with them. As somebody would ask me a while ago if I had bought one of those makeup brushes, as they got these. Well, first it was go out and actually buy a makeup brush, and then there's I think Army Painter actually has like a little, almost like a little round little makeup brush. I'm like, no, I want to use these. Cost like 20 cents each, so I don't feel bad about abusing them because they're going to get abused. Okay, let's add this, the desert color now. Let's go really light, make sure we don't overshoot it, and then have to use a wash. This reminds me of, like, man, why your figures look so good? This is your first army. This isn't my first fucking thing painting, dude. I've been painting for 25 fucking years. How many buildings do I have under my belt? Not very many. But I got a fucking clue, you know? It's skills you can bring on to something else that's, it's still painting things. Like, if I was more confident, I'd probably do some of this stuff as well. Painting backgrounds. I've painted, I don't know, 5, 6 different backgrounds. And the first one I did, I'm like, man, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm not so sure. So I watched a YouTube video on how to paint a norm. It was like a Normandy background, or it was something that had like Tuscan trees or something in there. You know, those thin Tuscan type trees. And I saw something, and this guy was doing like a step by step how to paint this thing, right? And I got this little canvas. It's about, I don't know, 5 by 8 or something like that. I'm like, well, let's try this out. I'm just gonna, I went to the end result, and the end result, I was like, I'd be really happy with something that looks similar to that. So let's see how we got along. And I just kind of putzed around. The only thing I did was I used craft paint because I don't have the tube paints for Liquitex, and it's a little cheap set that my daughter got a long time ago. That's kind of tube paints. It's not high quality, but hey, you can make decent looking stuff without high quality paint. And these things are 99 cents a piece, or they used to be. Or some of them were even actually less than $1. And but anyways, let me use with what I have and see how it turns out. And I kind of followed step by step. And the very first thing that this particular artist said to do was to cover the entire. Of course, the canvas is white. He says cover the entire canvas with burnt umber. So for those of you guys that don't know what burnt umber is we'll say it's a color similar to this. Is this called burnt umber? No, brown oxide. Yeah, something like this. It's like a reddish, medium reddish brown. Cover the entire canvas with it. And I'm like, okay, boss, use the boss, And I did that. And I just followed step by step. And I was like, damn, that turned out really well. So, and like I said, it took, well, that one was one that I followed directions, so it took a little longer. But the next one I did, I'm like, well, I'm going to cover it with the burnt umber. And it took me like 10 minutes to do it. It took an infinitesimally small amount of time to do it compared to somebody who's used to spending 4 hours on one miniature. I mean, I painted a little background in, 10, 15 minutes. It took longer to clean up than it did to actually do it. And it was really satisfying to do. And I'm like, man, I could have been doing this for years. People have seen it like, man, it turned out really well. So I'm like, I've been painting things. Even though it's not on a flat canvas, I have a clue, and I think I'm really good at mixing colors, unintentionally. It just kind of happens. I mean, I've been doing it for so many years. It's like, you can't help but having to develop some skills along the way. So yeah, when somebody says, oh man, how come that's your best? Man, that's a good looking army. How come that's your first army? So, well, because it's not the first thing I've been painting, dude. Now, when I first started doing DVA stuff, the first thing I did, I get to use colors that are like bright sometimes. Like, I've never done that before. I've been painting World War II stuff or ships. You're not painting red ships around, unless you're painting ships that look like the ones in World of Warships. Guy driving around This guy was in a game the other day. It was like in the Congo or the USS Tennessee or something like that. The 1944 version of USS Tennessee. And it was like freaking as bright as that Coke label. Like, 7-year-old child. Get out of here. So you'll surprise yourself at the things you actually can do that you don't give yourself a chance to do. And it's just like writer's block. I get painter's block. Sometimes you just got to jump in and just start painting. Don't overthink it. You know, what's the worst thing that can happen? You're not happy with it, and you just repaint that one thing. You know, it's not like I could. Now, this was going to be French all the time, constantly. Like I was never going to use this for anything other than in France. I'd probably put some posters here or something. I'm going to have some buildings that definitely look French, and then we can do that with those. But I don't want to necessarily commit to them being, and then they look out of place in Russia, you know. Although I don't have any big aspirations of doing built-up area stuff in Russia. Although, like what somebody mentioned, I could use them for Berlin. I never thought about that. I've never played something that late war, and I certainly have things for it. I certainly have vehicles for it. Now, let me put my glasses on and see what I've done. What have you done? Yeah, it looks. I'd I'd be pretty happy with that. I'm pretty happy with that. It doesn't mean you can't go in there and tinker and do this and do the other thing on there, but okay. This has an interior floor level, does it not? I believe it is this one. Yeah. Okay. But there's no wall sections on that. So that is strictly um, a floor color. So I'm going to, and let's do the brickwork that we know is going to be down here. And then let's go hit the floors. Okay, we still have at least 45 minutes on here. And nobody has typed a word. That's fine. The caffeine's working, so it's only on evenings I need you guys to like give me something so I can stay awake. I need traction in the evenings. Let's move this off to, actually, I'm thinking about it. Let me pull all these dirty ass brushes out. And you can see what I suck at is taking these out and cleaning them. Hey, I can't be great at everything. Let those jars dry. So I wanted to put this thing in there, but then I can't find out. I gotta figure out which brush it is again. Let me get the paper towels and move them over here. Which that's one of the things we gotta go to the store and get more paper towels. Not that I use the vast majority of them for them, but all right, let's get something that's just a wee bit smaller. And where is my hull red? Yeah, painter's block. I've certainly suffered from it a lot, but I'm trying to get better at it because it keeps you from doing stuff, man. You could be. That used to happen to me when I was doing 1/35th scale models. I'd go and I'd get a model and say, the Tamiya 8-wheel German armored car, 231. I think that one was actually a 232, with the antenna on it. So I'd start building it, and it's a Tamiya model, so there's no issues putting that thing together. Okay, still, other people would disagree with me. I think Tamiya is the gold standard. There may be other model companies that have better fit and finish, but the directions are on Tamiya models are something to aspire to. Certainly way back when, there, the early 90s. Then you start working on this thing, and then you encounter something like, am I going to make it for North Africa, or am I going to make it for Russia? Am I going to turn the wheels so it looks like it's an action? How am I going to do? You encounter this thing, and you start like looking at all the different possibilities, and you basically like back yourself into a corner and go, I don't know what I'm going to do. What if I make the wrong decision? What? So you're like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, and then you see another kit in the store, and you buy it instead, and then you encounter the same thing, and then so the next thing you got 20 kits that are all started, and we're afraid of making a decision that you could potentially get wrong. So, and because you don't have to get this thing done for a convention or something, you just don't make a decision. You move on to something else. That's what it was. I was done with when I got rid of all my 1/35th scale models. I had like probably 20 for sure models started, and I'm like, let's just ditch this. Let's just move on. Okay, now let's use some logic here. These bricks that are here were part of a wall. They fell down and they got damaged in the process. And getting bricks damaged in the process, they become dusty. So these bricks should technically be at least as light colored as the outside of this building or more. So I'm going to add more white onto this pile of stuff. And maybe even one more. Okay, and likewise, these broke off. So these should have a little bit more light color, plus more of the brick things. I don't like recesses being lighter. It looks weird. It's counterintuitive to my mind. Even when people that are really good at it do it, it doesn't look right to me. And notice that there's some brickwork here on the side of these windows. And in this first scenario, these buildings really won't be used. I mean, they're on the battlefield, on the board, I have a habit of calling it a board, even though it's not a board game. They're on the board, but unless the tank crew dismounts, like say your tank, you have to bail out of the tank and go hide in the building. But other than that, the buildings are just there for ambiance. One of them is supposed to be a church. I don't think I'm going to go out and buy a church. Not that I have anything against buying a church. It's just rather expensive. It's $100 fucking. So we'll buy a church after we have all these other buildings done. And maybe we can find a better price than $100 freaking. Especially when like 30 of it is like shipping. But I tell you what, I don't think I want to buy a church that's in good shape. I want to buy one that's destroyed, because can you imagine painting a church, a building that's this big and it's all got to be in shape? You're going to have stained glass window there, and we need to have Saint Denis or something like that. I'm not getting into that. I've got to do more than one building. Marcus, there you are. Thank God you showed up. My prayers are answered. Now, it was last night, man. I needed you. The girls were out super late. I mean, they didn't get back till like midnight. They had to go to a graduation of a friend of the family in another town, in another city. And would have been a perfect opportunity to paint all night. This asshole fell asleep. I just couldn't stay awake. I did manage to finish the end of that stupid Godzilla movie. And I went back and watched some of I tell you what, the best part of the whole movie was that freaking heavy cruiser. When the heavy cruiser shows up, they did a really good job of that. I knew there was a reason behind it. Oh, I needed to do the size windows. And I was running out of juice. Okay, that one's good. That's good. This one is not good. Okay. This one we can do better. We can do better. All right, and now let's put a little bit of that on here. Let me put my glasses on and see what the hell I've been doing this whole time. Okay, now, I like the color that I used for the floor here. So let's get these les partissans out of the way so I can dissect what colors I used. Which isn't that difficult to do. Oh, yeah, that should suffice. Let's get this out of the way. I could just go watch my video. Doesn't have to be exactly the same color. Pretty sure I didn't use brown oxide. It has too much. I know I used this. Raw umber. This is the base. There's no doubt about it that I used raw umber as the base. That would be just like me to do that. As opposed to burnt umber. Jeez, don't fall in a Kubelwagen. It'll break. Well, that one's not open yet. All right, we haven't used that one. All right, let's get this one right here, which is almost out. Working through a bit of a model issue. Oh, here we go. One of the Pegasus T-26 tanks didn't come with a mantlet for the gun, so I'm making one model a T-26 artillery tractor. Make it out of green. Make it out of this stuff. Make a mold. Let me look at the T-26 and see what kind of a job that is. Didn't come with a mantlet. Okay, fucking assholes. Might give you all the pieces on there. Yeah, that's pretty involved. That's pretty involved. Oh well. T-26s, you can't have too many of them. Well, actually, you could, but it's got to be somewhere around the 10,000 range. You have more than 10,000 T-26s. I think you shouldn't have more than how many were really built. It still floors me. It's still floors. I'm one of these days. I'm going to go and get this book. There's a book, and I mentioned it. I saw it when I was on my trip it was on the New York trip that I went up there, and what was that, a couple of years ago? And I went to this bookstore in Connecticut. We happened to go up to Connecticut because my wife did time in Connecticut. No, she that's where she lived. She lived up there for 3-4 years, something like that. And I went to this little town square. I forget which town it was. And they had a little bookstore. And I'm like, my daughter was like, I don't go to the bookstore. I'm sitting there thinking, they ain't gonna have shit there, right? You see, you look at one of these like artsy bookstores, like they're not gonna have any man books in there, you know. They're gonna have these shit I wouldn't read, you know. But they had this book that was something like World War II in charts or something like that. And I never wrote down the name of the book. They wanted like $40 or something for it. And I'm like, I'm not spending $40 on a book and then have to travel with it. This is a relatively large book. I mean, it's like, I want to say it's like 16 inches by like 24. It's a good size book, kind of process stuff like, production values of fighter planes by year and country. Have different pie charts of, Italy, Germany, for, they have all kinds of stuff on there on that page as well. And really interesting. I looked at it. I was looking at it for a while and we had to leave. And I'm like, nah, I don't want this bad enough. But I tracked it down on Amazon. It's like $20 or something like that. So I think I'm going to get it at some point. And do I want to use this brush? I don't think I want to use this brush. This one's a little too soft. And what was I going on with this? Oh, I'm floored that Germany built a lot more planes than tanks. It just seems like tanks are easier to build. Tanks don't have to fucking fly. If you build the tank wrong, it just goes to the battlefield. I mean, it just, if you build a plane wrong, it doesn't stay in the fucking air. It just seems like a plane would be much more difficult to build than a tank. They always say like, oh, we could have built 5 Mark IVs for every Tiger built or something like that. Well, it seems like you could build 10 tanks for one plane. I don't know. But one of the most common planes built in the Second World War was a Messerschmitt. Maybe that's because it continued on, but I mean, they built like 35,000 of them or something. I mean, just some absurd number. Okay. You're not gluing the artillery tractor cabin down in the off chance I could mold that piece somehow. Might have to use the turret and wreck. Okay, now you're thinking, the woman slayer. Have you audio only walked the dog? Didn't know your wife was a part-time nutmegger. What the fuck is that? All right, you're gonna make me look. What the hell's a nutmegger? My Yankee family is from the shoreline near New Haven. Oh, is that somebody from Connecticut? A nutmegger? When I went there for the first time, I did not like the Northeast, and I still don't like the Northeast. It's just weird. It's strange for me. I don't associate with America as old shit, okay? Because I live in a place that's basically fucking new. There's rarely a building. There's rarely a building in the part of town where you wouldn't get mugged that's more than 50 years old. It's just unusual. Yeah, there's older buildings in this town, but I don't ever go over there. I don't want to be mugged. I don't have a drug problem, so I don't need to go over that part of town. So it's you, and I am not a fan of colonial American architecture. It's like another country to me. So I didn't like it 20 something years ago when I went. But this last time I went, it was okay. You know, it seemed like it finally improved in the last 20 or 30 years. But it is like another country to me. I'm not used to things being old. You know, um, so like when I went to Canada, I loved it because everything was new there. You know, what the. Oh, blind people problems, nearsighted stupidity, nutmegger. I've never heard that before. Didn't know that. Shit, I waited too long to answer. I don't know. I assume that would be the case for allies as well. Oh, about the planes. Yeah. Yeah, it's a really interesting book. I'm going to pick it up at some point, and then we'll look through it on a show. It's I'm telling you, it's really there's some things that don't speak to me. Um, Algebra 2, abstract shit, pie charts and charts to understand something, the gist of something, so then you can dive. Yeah, that works for me. And yeah, it kind of puts a lot of stuff into perspective. But yeah, planes, they built a shitload of planes. I don't know what all of the exact numbers are, but at a glance is they built as many Messerschmitts as the Russians built T-34s. It's something ridiculous. Like, what the? I mean, like, what? And a lot of this stuff, well, I don't know if it pertains to planes. It certainly pertains to armored vehicles. The Germans built more armored vehicles in the years where they were getting the shit bombed out of them by the British and the American. I remembered to put the British in there. Air forces, you know, they built more armored vehicles in 1944 than all of the years combined. Now, part of that had to do with well, I guess we really need to try hard because this war is not going to be over with in, 6 months like we thought it was. Part of it is that. Part of it is, they didn't want to inconvenience the German people horribly so they wouldn't have the problem they had in the First World War, which is them saying, we've had enough of this nonsense. But they built more armored vehicles in 1944 than all the years combined. Well, in 1944, I don't think there was a day the Germans weren't getting the shit bombed out of them, at home. But I mean, I knew that, but all the details of the planes and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, like 40,000, something like that, Messerschmitts, like just crazy. And that's just Messerschmitts. And I'm sure that was the most common plane, I don't know how many Focke-Wulfs they made. I don't know, 12,000, something. I don't know. But that kind of stuff it's a really interesting book. I think I'm going to pick it up at some point. But I just didn't feel like buying another book that I wasn't going to look at in detail because it's taken away from doing this. This is the boat that we're on right now. But I would think that it takes more man hours to put a plane together than a tank. But I could be wrong. I mean, there are a lot of, a fighter plane it has controls and stuff for one person, right? Whereas a tank, it's a crew. So, you know, maybe I don't know that it's 5 times more difficult, but I don't know. It was an interesting book. It was an interesting book. The case for the British, and again, don't take anything I say, take it as a grain of salt, because this is not what my thesis is on. But the British had a hard time cranking out a bunch of tanks. That's why they used Shermans and stuff like that. Because they were busy cranking out a shitload of planes. I mean, the Brits built a shitload of planes. So, it's kind of like when you're playing Axis and Allies and you play Britain, which I love to play Britain because they got their nose everywhere. They got stuff that's happening to them all over the world, right? I like playing Britain. How many tanks do you buy as a British? Not a whole lot. If you're buying a lot of tanks as the British, the game's kind of over with, But you buy a lot of planes, you buy a lot of merchant ships. I guess that makes Axis and Allies a realistic game, doesn't it? I guess it's not complete fallacy. Yeah, the Brits made a ton of planes. I have to see how many bombers they hadn't made a bunch of bombers, because if they're doing all the bombing at night and they're the only ones doing the bombing at night, I think they made like a reasonable amount of mosquitoes and stuff like that. Like, I can't look it up right. This would be the time that if we were using a computer, I'd look it up on my phone just to be like. I'm telling you, I'm just doing World War II stuff, and there's all kind of really interesting stuff on there to find out that I don't know about. That's interesting. And production is just one of those things we won't think about, but it's super important. Production is more interesting to me than logistics. Logistics just isn't interesting. That's funny because that's what I do for a living. Oh man, I mean that's why I'm not interested. Now there's just a whole lot of. Well, we got to be careful maneuvering our way through here. We don't want to create a lot of damage that is going to spend time fixing it. But we do end up going up over the walls, putting them again, cleaning them up a little bit. Wasn't too bad. It was pretty easy to do. So we got a little trap door there that somehow leads to a lower level. Is that the only access point to this? It is. How strange. A factory, but in order to get up here, you got to go through. We'll probably build us a rudimentary little ladder. It doesn't have to be exactly like a ladder. It could just be a post in the middle and other things on there. Just something to run this part of the building, and that part of the building is gone. It's like there's no connecting wall there. I wonder if the sculptor of this knew anything about actual buildings. They're just like, oh, let's just put a hole here. Like that one French cafe that has the access point to the second floor is right in front, right on top of the door, right in the murder hole. It's a murder hole cafe. We'll do the door separately. All right. Now let me put my glasses on so I can see that both of these are to an equivalent level, ish. Okay, yeah. Just gotta be kind of close a little bit. All right. Where are we gonna go next? Well, we've dumped all this. Oh yeah, all this shit. Oh yeah. This stuff's really water. I think this one's dead. All right. I'm going to take Country Tan, Country Ass Tan. And we'll use this as the mix-in for the wood, and then we'll add white. And I think that's probably what I did. Country Ass Tan. You said you got a hillbilly thing. Do you like country music? I don't. That doesn't mean that I might not hear something that I like, but it's not likely. It's not likely that I'm going to encounter country music that I care for. Country music is actually kind of the opposite of my taste buds. Meaning unless it's something really weird, I like a lot of stuff. Put it in my mouth. Okay, have fun with that. I have a problem like with food. As long as it's not something weird, like I don't want to eat goat or weird shit like that. Okay. But music, yeah, I don't like most music. So back when the radio days, I'd spend more time changing channels than I would actually listen to music. You like most music, but country's not my thing. Yeah, I just like most music. They did it to themselves. What do you mean by that? I said, we just make stuff I don't like. There's a lot of music that I like, but there's a lot of genres I don't care for. Like I like smooth jazz. I grew up. I'm an '80s rock person. That's what I'm interested in. But there's even stuff that from that period I'm like I don't want to hear this damn thing anymore. Like I like smooth jazz, but I don't like traditional jazz. It's too chaotic. You know, that's what I. That's the first thing I listened to when I started painting. I was like, and this was when I was doing DBA armies. I picked up smooth jazz, and I don't know, I guess in my 30s. I'm like, we had a channel here. I'm like, oh, this is relaxing to listen to. It's got a good groove. This isn't half bad, you know. But one of the things for me is I don't hear well, and I don't understand well, and I'm really bad about picking out lyrics. Really bad. So like, I don't give a shit what the song's about because I can't understand it. I can't understand the lyrics. So be really careful. Be very careful. That sounded a little too Elmer Fudd for me. One of my least favorite cartoon characters is Elmer Fudd. Always found him annoying as shit. Sorry. I didn't know we were going to talk about Elmer Fudd today. Where's Elmer Fudd's accent from? I mean, I know it's just made up, but I mean, what part of like Foghorn Leghorn, we know where that guy's from, okay? He's not from Connecticut. Oh, man. Jazz clubs were popular in Japan for some reason. I used to frequent one often. Yeah. What I don't like about traditional jazz is some of it is just too scattered, and it feels like everybody is competing for the limelight. You know, when it's like, look, you guys kind of, everybody kind of has it's a team effort. And if you don't sound like you're part of a team, it hurts. It just, it's unnatural for me. You know, I don't like the chaos, you know. Jazz clubs in Japan. Yeah, they got some of those, what do they call those series of albums like called like Buddha Lounge or something like that? Some of those are pretty good, man. Got a good groove. I like music that's got a good groove in it. And I'm not instrumental at all. That's not my, I'm not that kind of artsy. Yeah, so we got some on the staircase. It'll rub out. I was worried about it the first one that I did, and I'm like, oh, this is easy to fix. No, I don't want to create extra work, but you don't want to take so much painstaking time that it keeps you from getting anything done of substance. Okay, so we got this one equivalent to this. All right. Then while this one's drying, let's add a little bit of this to it before we add more. Before we add a little bit of white. We don't want to look like it's. Did you find people in Japan were friendly, or they were like kind of kept to themselves, or like, what's this white guy doing here? What's this Anglo guy doing here? And are Japanese people significantly nerdier than Western people? Well, I mean, well, when you encounter people that I suspect are Japanese here in Florida, they're like in Disney World or something like that, and they're like, oh, they're like taking pictures of everything. And, oh, look, it's Mickey's underwear or his shoes, or they're like super nerdy in that respect. Like, dude, man, get out and maybe it's just the people that I encounter in Disney. I don't encounter Japanese people in other places. And I'm not trying to judge them. I just want to know. I'm just kind of curious because the ones I've encountered are very eccentric. Love taking pictures of shit. All right, how does this look compared to the other floor? Okay. I'm going to finish this one all the way through before I keep going back and forth with it. Let's add some more depth, but we're not ready to do the white yet because then it's going to wash it out too much. Although you could make a case for this floor looking really dried out considering all the dust and stuff that's been kicked up, but I want it to look like it's, was wood at some point. They were shy, but I tried to learn the language best I could, and people did open up. They are into craft. They're into craft. They're crafty. They so if there was like a Hobby Lobby in Japan, it'd be like full of people. They're big drinkers, aren't they? I know it depends on the person. I just mean, generally. I'm not a big drinker. I, don't have anything against it. I become a hell of a lot more fun. But it's just something that is not part of my daily occurrences. It didn't have to be the same, but what happens when we add a little bit of white to... Ooh, I could do something really crazy. Like I've taken this brown and added this to it, and then when I add the white, don't even use this color in it, add the white from the other one. Ooh, I don't think I've done something like that. What happens? What's going to happen? Ooh, let's try it. And these are like little roof tiles. That's what I've decided to call this scattered things that are in here. So we've been painting them blue gray just to add a little spot of color to it. I don't think I even need to paint these. What are they called? Floor joists? I'm a building construction guy, but I haven't done that shit in 30 fucking years. The subflooring boards. I can get behind people that are into craft. You know, you know what I can't get into? People that just collect shit. So, like for instance, I'm going to use Magic the Gathering. It's a game, but you just buy shit. So you just basically your hobby is just buying shit. And it's even worse than that. It's like buying random shit. Just anybody can do that. There's no skill to hone. Like, man, you're the best buyer of all. It just doesn't resonate with me. Or things that are like that, like people that he's a redneck dude. What's he do? He collects die-cast NASCAR cars. Like, they're already fucking done. What do you collect? I collect, I don't know, just something you buy in a store. It just doesn't, I just figure anybody can do that. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Now, yeah, that's good. I do want some parts that are darker than others. They did anything weird there that you wouldn't put in your mouth in Japan? Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. What? Who? What? Oh no. I'm not even gonna say that. Whew. Why would you go harvest that? Like, what's wrong with you? Oh, that's right, they eat whales. Fuckers. Japanese fuckers. And who is it? The Iceland too? Iceland, Norway, and the Japanese eat whales. Man, whales are good, man. Leave those guys alone. And yes, I'm a racist when it comes to animals. There's some animals I like better than others. Deal with it. Whales are good. Like dolphins are good, you know? My daughter was telling me something about dolphins that they like to rape other animals. Whatever. I mean, they're still friggin' animals, but man, dolphins are good animals. Don't be eating no dolphins. There's a connection there between humans and dolphins. How would you go harvest that? Maybe they think if they eat enough of that stuff, their thing will grow more whale sized. I don't know. Oh, man. Yeah, because of all of the Asian type food that I would go here in the States, the one I'm the most likely to be comfortable with everything on the menu would be Japanese. I don't have a problem with sushi. Um, I don't like undercooked red meat because I don't like the taste of it, but I have no problem eating sushi stuff that's raw, as long as the place looks, clean, you know. So on a better topic, I've decided to repay 2 Matilda tanks you originally paid for the BF into Fight North Africa. Tix Gazala series has inspired some scenarios. So I'm maybe a third of the way through it. Yeah, he's really good. I really enjoy him. My only gripe that I have with him, I really only have one gripe with Tick, and it's not really a gripe. It's just the way he is, and he can't fix it. But he ends every, and it hasn't been too bad in this series, but um, he starts saying a sentence, and he always ends the same way. And after an hour of it, it comes on, and you just almost like fall asleep. Um, that's just the way he is. It'd be just like, you don't like the fact that I'm nearsighted. Well, I'm sorry. I mean, I can't do anything about that. But I think he's brilliant. I really like his, between the maps and the details that we're interested as modelers, it's really pretty good. So, but he starts saying these things and the sentences all kind of end in the same manner. But is that really the case? Actually, I like that. I like that. It seems like he questions stuff, and I really appreciate that because, as we know, there's lots of stuff that we may have read about the Second World War growing up that were just full of, you know, happy German memories, so to speak. Wishful thinking. Um, Yeah, I'm a little bit past the point where he's talking about the numbers of the units. Actually, the Germans just went around the end, and the guys aren't the generals aren't talking to each other. The First Armored Division is not talking. And see, that's why I like that stuff. Like he'll show you the units where they are and their little logo and maybe a picture of the commander. And like I know what the symbols of the seventh and the first are. So I'm like, okay, those guys, and and those guys had more Gramps, and I'm like, I'm that stuff. I didn't know that they had any long barreled Panzer IVs. They just didn't have ammo for them. So they have 4 of them. Yes, I'm paying attention. And sort of thinking, okay, what were the numbers on those 4 Panzer IVs that were there? Well, I almost guarantee that the turret numbers on those Panzer IVs either started with a 4 or an 8. But did you notice the proportion of Panzer IVs to Panzer IIIs? It's like 4-1, or even like more than 4-1. You know, there weren't the Panzer IVs didn't really start having a bunch of them in a Panzer division until they were the main battle tank. They were still kind of like we'll put them in this one company and we'll use them like for special stuff. You know, that was an interesting fact. They also didn't have as many long-barreled threes as I thought. Yeah, I haven't gotten to that point, but I knew that was the case. They didn't start cranking out. Oh, how about the part where they had the number of tanks that he had compared to the Eastern Front? Like, they didn't have very many tanks on the Eastern Front. I was surprised. What, like 1,100 or something like that? And he had like 332 in North Africa. Like, wow. He had 332 tanks that, in only 2 Panzer divisions. So that was pretty well equipped Panzer divisions at strength, but makes me want to go back and read the Crusader one and see what he is numbers wise on that one. See, that's the kind of stuff that I was talking about, that book that has kinds of details you wouldn't know. Like, if, you know, how many tanks were active in, like, you know, June 1942. You might have like different charts. You don't realize, like, man, there's just not as much stuff as they must have really depleted the tank strength of Army Group North and Center in 1942 for Operation Blau, because there's some Panzer divisions that were in the South, in Army Group South in 1942 that had three tank battalions. So they were like over strength. And to say that they were low at that point, as a whole, that means there were some severely depleted Panzer divisions in the North and Center. Another fact that's interesting is how well the Grant tank armor. Well, after playing enough Command Decision, it should have better armor than any other vehicle. Any cruiser tank. Is it a cruiser tank? I don't know. I guess it wouldn't be a cruiser tank. He also mentioned that the 37 millimeter wasn't worth using, but I don't know. The gun, it's the same gun that's on the Honey. 37L53, I think. And it's almost as good as a 2-pounder. I guess the Germans had a lot of Panzer III, and that extra bolt-on armor made a difference. The 20 millimeters of extra bolt-on armor on the... I know they have it on the hull. I don't know if they've got any extra... I don't know if the H has any extra mantlet armor than the G. But I guess they probably had some J's that didn't have the long armor. I don't know, the Germans only had, from 1941, if they had any upgraded tanks, they only had 20 millimeters more armor. And it's on the front. The tanks really didn't improve much on the side armor. They stuck like at 30 millimeters of side armor for like forever. It was just a matter of, later on they had Scherzen on them. And I'm not talking about Panthers, I'm talking about 3s and 4s. 3s and 4s, I don't think any of them had more than like 40 millimeters of side armor. So, yeah, the Grant, let's see, in Command Decision, the Grant has 7.5 armor. So the Grant has the same amount of side armor equivalent that some Panzers had to the front. But that's 75 millimeter on the Grant's not very good. I know it can fire AP, but it's basically an HE weapon. It's not the same gun that was on the Sherman. It's a shorter gun that was on the Sherman. So I'd rather have the best gun at that period. Did they have any 6-pounders at Gazala? If they did, that would be the best gun out there. It's not the long 50. That 50L60. I stopped his chart a couple times to look at the numbers, and there were some errors in his chart. Like there was a chart that was talking about with the one that has the German numbers, like it says how many Panzer threes and fours. It has Panzer fours and fours. So I'm like, I mean, I know what it is, but I don't know if that would have been confusing to other people. I think at some point he has a picture of a Panzer III, and he says it's a 50 long 55 millimeter gun. So, you know, hey, it's a lot of work. You're going to get stuff wrong, but I wasn't going to comment. I wanted to be one of those guys. Hey, you got the thing wrong on this thing, but hey, I can tell you when you're doing it. I think I don't know if he's paying somebody to edit his stuff, but man, that's a shitload of work, man. Those details aren't going to confuse me anyways. I know what he's talking about. It's funny that he didn't list any Panzer ones in the German tank numbers. So were there any Panzer ones that were in May of 1942? Maybe, but they probably were. They probably just gave up on them even doing any tanky type stuff at all. Not that they really were any good at doing it before. Shoot up trucks and stuff like that. Did have 6-pounder AT guns, but not enough. Yeah, that's a stellar weapon for that period. That's another one of those. We don't have HE for this round gun too. I think. I don't think they had HE at that period. Okay, I'm going to have to stop, unfortunately. I gotta go take the car in. And I like being one of the first people in line so I can get out in a reasonable amount of time. But this is where we're at so far. You know, so getting there. These floors are actually pretty secure. Although I kind of wish they were in levels. So you could be like, okay, this is what's happening on this level. Not like, okay, we got some guys up here shooting. Oh, yeah, we don't need to fall down. These guys are up here shooting. And then, oh, somebody's entering this other level. All right, well, I'm going to move this off to the side. And then hopefully they don't shift on here. You know, it'll be fine. It's, you know, it'll be an adventure figuring it out. So it'll be easier than any day at work has been. All right, folks. Thanks for stopping by. And we'll see you guys on the next one. I don't know if I will be on tomorrow morning. I don't know. We're going away for tomorrow and the next day. We'll come back on Monday. I don't know how it's going to play out. I guarantee you that if I'm painting, I will be on. So, all right, folks, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.